The silver-haired woman standing at the back of the reception hall wasn't the help. She was the one who'd written the $480,000 check. When my daughter introduced a stranger as mother and called me just staff helping with logistics, I set down my phone and opened the contract client satisfaction clause, highlighted in yellow. 10 minutes later, the lights came up, the music cut out, and 400 guests learned exactly who had been paying for this party. My name is Eleanor Grant, and I've spent the last 30 years learning that money talks louder than blood ever could. At 58, widowed for 6 years now, I've built myself into something more than the struggling single mother I once was. Senior Financial Supervisor at Northwind Logistics isn't a glamorous title, but it pays $130,000 a year. And I've squeezed every penny of that salary into something meaningful. Or so I thought, until my daughter Lila decided I wasn't meaningful enough to acknowledge as her mother. The wedding planning started 18 months ago. Lila had just gotten engaged to Bennett Roth. Yes, those Roths. The ones with the estate in Beacon Hill and the compound on Martha's Vineyard. She came to my apartment in Quincy with her eyes sparkling and her voice pitched high with excitement. "Mom, I want the wedding of my dreams. The one we used to plan when I was little. Remember? With the conservatory and the orchids and everything." I remembered. Those nights when the electricity was shut off and we'd huddle under blankets, planning fantasy weddings by flashlight. Back then, it was a game to distract her from the cold. Now she wanted it real. The Hawthorne Conservatory in Newport, that's what she'd set her heart on. $480,000 for the venue, catering, flowers, and what they called atmospheric enhancement. That didn't include her dress, $32,000, the photographer, $18,000, or the honeymoon. God knows how much Bennett was spending on that. When I saw the quote from the wedding planner, Marisol Vega, my chest tightened. But Lila's face, the hope there, the desperate need to belong in Bennett's world, I couldn't say no. I liquidated my retirement account, taking the tax penalty like a punch to the gut. Then I refinanced the condo I'd finally paid off just 2 years ago. The mortgage officer at Boston Federal looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "Ma'am, you're borrowing against 30 years of equity for a one-day event." "It's for my daughter," I said, as if that explained everything. Maybe it did. The contract with Marisol was thick as a phone book. My lawyer friend, Avery Cole, went through it with me line by line. "Eleanor, this satisfaction clause here, it's unusual, but it works in your favor. The final payment of $180,000 isn't due until 9 p.m. on the wedding day, and it's contingent on your satisfaction with the services provided. Any changes to the event must be approved by you in writing. You sure you want this much control?" "I'm paying for it," I said. "I want to make sure it's perfect for Lila." The first sign something was wrong came 3 months before the wedding. Lila called me at 11:30 at night. "Mum, about the wedding. Bennett's mum thinks it would be better if you dressed more conservatively. You know, nothing too flashy. Maybe something in navy or grey." I hadn't planned on wearing anything flashy. "Lila, and maybe, don't talk too much about your job. The Roths' friends might not relate to logistics and shipping. Maybe just say you work in business if anyone asks." The words stung, but I swallowed them. "Whatever makes you comfortable, sweetheart." Then came the seating arrangements. I found out through Marisol's assistant, who called to confirm the head table. So we have the bride, groom, the Roth parents, and Ms. Alyssa Corbin as the bride's mother figure. I'm sorry. What I'm Lila's mother. Oh, There must be a mistake. I'll check with Lila. Lila called an hour later. Mum, don't make a big deal about this. Alyssa has been like a social mentor to me. She's helping me navigate Bennett's world. The head table is about optics, you understand? Right. You're at table 31. It's a great spot. You can see everything. Table 31 was next to the service entrance and the restrooms. I looked at the seating chart Marisol sent me. Every other parent, grandparent, and family member was within the first 5 tables. The cleaning staff would probably pass my table more than the servers would. The final insult came when Lila asked me not to attend the vendor meetings. Mum, you've done so much already. Let me handle these details with Alyssa. She knows all the best people in Newport. Alyssa Corbin, 50-something. Never married. Never had children. But somehow had become the mother Lila wanted to present to the world. Old money from Philadelphia. Summered in Newport. Had the right accent. The right clothes. The right everything I'd never be. I signed every check they put in front of me. $300,000 up front to Marisol. $50,000 to the conservatory as a deposit. Deposits for the caterer, the florist, the musicians. My bank account drained like water through a sieve, but I told myself it was worth it. This was my gift to Lila, her entrance into a world I could never give her through breeding or connection, only through cold, hard cash. The morning of the wedding, I stood in my room at the Harbour Inn. Lila had suggested I not stay at the venue to avoid confusion for the guests, and looked at my navy dress. Conservative, unremarkable, exactly what she'd asked for. I'd paid $480,000 to become invisible at my own daughter's wedding, but I still had that contract in my briefcase. And Avery's words echoed, "Any changes must be approved by you in writing." The cocktail hour was in full swing when I arrived at the Hawthorne Conservatory at 6:15. The space was breathtaking, soaring glass ceilings, exotic orchids cascading from every surface, soft golden lighting that made everyone look 10 years younger and infinitely wealthier, 400 guests in their finest, champagne flowing like water, and somewhere in that crowd, my daughter was pretending I didn't exist. I found my place card at table 31, just as promised. From where I stood, I could smell the restroom's lavender air freshener competing with the $30,000 floral arrangements. I picked up a glass of champagne from a passing server champagne I'd paid for and tried to blend into the wallpaper. That's when I heard Lila's laugh, bright and crystalline, cutting through the cocktail chatter. She was holding court near the main entrance. Bennett at her side, surrounded by what looked like his Yale rowing team friends and their dates. Alyssa Corbin stood next to her, one manicured hand resting proprietarily on Lila's shoulder. "Everyone, I want you to meet someone special," Lila announced, her voice carrying. "This is Alyssa Corbin. She's been like a mother to me, really, the one who taught me everything about navigating this world." My champagne glass trembled, like a mother to her. Alyssa smiled, gracious and refined. "Oh, Lila's being too kind, though I must say, after my dear friend Patricia Grant passed away so young, I felt it was my duty to step in and guide this remarkable young woman." Patricia Grant. My name is Eleanor. Patricia was my middle name, which Lila knew perfectly well. "Your mother passed away?" one of the Yale boys asked sympathetically. Lila's eyes flickered for just a moment. "When I was young. It's been hard. But Alyssa has filled that void beautifully. The room spun slightly. I set my champagne down on a nearby table, my hand shaking. My daughter had just told a room full of people that I was dead. The female MC, a peppy blonde named Madison, whom the Roths had insisted on hiring, noticed me hovering near the group. "Oh, are you with the wedding? I don't think we've met. Are you from Bennett's side?" Before I could answer, Lila jumped in with a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, that's Eleanor. She's helping with the logistics. She's sort of like staff from the planning team. You know, making sure everything runs smoothly." "How wonderful," Madison gushed. "It takes a village, doesn't it? Good help is so hard to find these days." Good help. I was good help. Bennett looked confused for a moment, his brow furrowing. He'd met me exactly twice. Both times Lila had introduced me as a family friend who was helping with the arrangements. Now I understood why she'd kept him away from me. "Actually," I started to say, but Lila cut me off. "Eleanor, would you mind checking with the kitchen about the dietary restriction plates? I think table 17 has the gluten-free requests." It was a dismissal, clear and public. I stood there for a moment, 58 years old, in my conservative navy dress, being ordered around like hired help at the wedding I'd bankrolled with my entire life's savings. "Of course," I heard myself say. I turned to walk away, and that's when it happened. A man at the adjacent table, already 3 cocktails in, knocked over a glass of red wine. It shattered on the marble floor, burgundy liquid spreading like blood across the white stone. "Miss," he called out to me, snapping his fingers. "Miss, could you clean this up and bring me another Cabernet while you're at it?" "I'm not." "Oh, don't be difficult. Lila said you're with the staff. Table 12 needs attention." "Lila said you're with the staff." I looked back at my daughter. She was already turned away, laughing at something Alyssa had whispered in her ear, her hand glittering with the 3-carat diamond Bennett had given her, the light catching on the $60,000 pearl necklace, my mother's pearls, which I'd given her that morning as her something old. The man snapped his fingers again. "Today. Please." I knelt down, not to clean up the wine, but to pick up a shard of glass, holding it up to the light. It was good crystal Waterford, probably $200 a glass. I'd approved that invoice 3 months ago. "I'll send someone," I said quietly, standing up and placing the shard carefully on his table. I walked through the crowd, invisible and visible all at once, visible as the help, invisible as Eleanor Grant, mother of the bride. Several guests stopped me to ask for things. More champagne. Direction to the restroom. Could I find their table card? Each request another small cut. Then I overheard Alyssa talking to a group of women from the Newport Garden Club. Poor Lila, losing her mother so young. Thank God she had that trust fund Patricia left her. Though I worry it wasn't managed well. Between you and me, I think that's why she's had to be so creative with the wedding financing. Bennett's family is practically paying for everything. Of course. Bennett's family, the Roths, who hadn't contributed a single penny beyond Bennett's tuxedo rental and the rehearsal dinner. I pulled out my phone and checked the time. 7:45. The final payment of $180,000 was due at 9. Marisol would be looking for me soon. That's when the text came through from Marisol. "Mrs. Grant, preparing for final payment processing. Need your authorization by 9 p.m. for the grand reception opening." The conservatory requires cleared funds before releasing the ballroom. I looked at the message, then at my daughter across the room, now posing for photos with the Roths and Alyssa, a perfect family portrait that didn't include me. I stepped out onto the terrace, needing air that didn't smell like lies and lavender restroom freshener. My phone showed 8:05, 55 minutes until the final payment was due. 55 minutes to decide if I would complete the purchase of my own humiliation. I pulled up my email and found the contract, forwarding it to Avery with a simple message, "On standby, may need you." Her response was immediate. "At home. Ready when you are." Remember, satisfaction clause is ironclad. My fingers moved to the folder labeled Wedding Documents. Every receipt, every invoice, every email exchange with vendors. The paper trail of my financial suicide. All properly organized, because that's what a senior financial supervisor does. We document everything, even our own destruction. Another text from Marisol, "Mrs. Grant, gentle reminder. The ballroom remains locked until final payment clears. Guests will transition for reception at 9:15. I scrolled through my bank app. The loan had cleared yesterday, 180,000 sitting in my checking account, waiting to be handed over. One click and the night would continue as planned. My daughter would dance in the ballroom I'd paid for, cut the cake I'd bought, toast with champagne I'd selected, all while telling everyone her mother was dead. I called Avery. "Talk to me," she said without preamble. She told everyone I'm dead. Avery, actually dead. Then when someone noticed me, she said I was staff. Jesus Christ, Eleanor. The final payment is due in 50 minutes, and you're calling me because... The satisfaction clause. I'm not satisfied. There was a pause. I could hear Avery flipping pages. According to Section 47, subsection C, client satisfaction is determined solely by the contracting party, that's you. Non-payment due to dissatisfaction must be accompanied by specific documented grievances. The vendor has the right to cease services immediately upon non-payment. Which means if you don't pay, they can shut it all down, immediately. No reception, no dinner, no music, no nothing. The nuclear option. I looked through the glass doors at the cocktail party. Lila was laughing, her head thrown back, diamond earrings catching the light. The earrings I'd given her for her 21st birthday, back when she still admitted I was her mother. "Eleanor, I need to ask you something," Avery said. "Is this about revenge, or is this about waking her up? What's the difference? One ends with you satisfied but alone. The other might salvage something." I thought about that morning, placing my mother's pearls around Lila's neck while she sat at the vanity. She'd smiled at me in the mirror and said, "Thanks for everything. Eleanor." Not Mom. Eleanor. "I need you to draft something," I said. "A modification to the satisfaction clause. I'll be satisfied if 3 conditions are met." "Go on." 1, Lila publicly acknowledges who I am and my role in financing this wedding. 2, the Roth family agrees in writing not to retaliate or defame me following tonight's events. 3, any further disrespect or misrepresentation results in immediate cessation of services. That's playing with fire, Eleanor. I already got burned. Might as well control the flames. I'll draft it now. You'll have it in 10 minutes. I hung up and walked back inside. The cocktail hour was winding down. Guests starting to drift toward the ballroom doors, which remained firmly shut. Marisol appeared at my elbow, her professional smile tight. "Mrs. Grant, we need to process payment now. The venue is very strict about their timeline. I'm aware. We'll handle it at 8:55. Her smile flickered. That's cutting it very close. The guests. We'll wait. They're good at following instructions, aren't they? They certainly had no problem ordering me around tonight. Marisol's eyes widened slightly. She'd been at every planning meeting, knew exactly who I was. Mrs. Grant, I don't understand. My daughter introduced me as staff, Marisol. Multiple guests have asked me to clean up spills and fetch them drinks. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. Be ready. Things might get interesting at 8:55. My phone buzzed. Avery had sent the modification document. Clean, legal, bulletproof. I forwarded it to Marisol. Please review this with your contracts team. This is my condition for the final payment. Marisol read it, her face going pale. Mrs. Grant, this could completely derail the reception if my conditions aren't met. Yes, I'm aware. I need to inform the venue management. Please do, and Marisol have security standing by. Not to remove anyone, just to ensure the vendors can execute their contracts if necessary. She hurried away, phone already at her ear. I checked the time, 8:30, 25 minutes. I positioned myself where I could see both the locked ballroom doors and the increasingly restless crowd. The Roth family was clustered near the entrance. Edward Roth, checking his Rolex repeatedly. Bennett looked confused. Alyssa was whispering urgently to Lila, who kept glancing at the doors with growing concern. At 8:45, Madison the MC approached the doors with her microphone, ready to announce the grand entrance. The doors didn't open. She pulled on the handles. Nothing. The venue manager appeared, a tall man in an impeccable suit. He whispered something to Madison, who looked shocked. Then he walked directly to me. Mrs. Grant, I understand there's a payment issue. Not an issue, a negotiation. The contracts are quite clear. Yes, they are, particularly the satisfaction clause. He studied me for a moment. We've reviewed your proposed modifications. They're unusual, but legally sound. However, I should warn you that if payment isn't received by 9 p, we're obligated to inform the guests that the event is concluded. I understand. 8:50. The crowd was murmuring now, confusion rippling through the room like a tide. At 8:55, the venue manager raised his hand, and the lights in the cocktail area shifted from warm gold to stark white fluorescence. The romantic atmosphere evaporated instantly. The music cut mid-song, leaving only the confused murmur of 400 guests. Ladies and gentlemen, the manager announced, his voice carrying without a microphone. We're experiencing a technical delay with the reception setup. Please remain here while we resolve the situation. That was the polite version. The real version was already in motion behind the scenes. I watched as the catering staff began quietly removing the premium champagne bottles from the bars, replacing them with house wine. The elaborate hot appetizer stations started shutting down, their warming flames extinguished one by one. 2 florists appeared and began carefully removing the 3-foot orchid arrangements from the cocktail tables. Those weren't purchased outright, just rented. And without final payment, they reverted to the vendor. Edward Roth was the first to understand something was seriously wrong. He cornered the venue manager near the main bar. What the hell is going on? Why are the doors locked? Sir, We're awaiting final payment authorization for the reception space. Payment? Everything was paid months ago. The final installment of $180,000 is due now, sir. Without it, we cannot open the ballroom. Edward's face went from confusion to fury. Then process the goddamn payment. Where's the wedding planner? Marisol materialized, tablet in hand, professional mask firmly in place. Mr. Roth, the payment must come from the contracting party, which is Mrs. Eleanor Grant. I watched the recognition dawn on his face. He'd never connected the dots. The invisible woman his future daughter-in-law had dismissed as help was the one bankrolling this entire spectacle. "Where is she?" he demanded. Marisol gestured toward me. I stood by the terrace doors, still in my conservative navy dress, holding my phone with the banking app open, the cursor hovering over the transfer button. Edward Roth strode over, Bennett and Lila trailing behind him. Alyssa hung back, her social antennae clearly sensing danger. "You're Eleanor Grant." Edward's tone was accusatory, as if I'd committed fraud by existing. "I am." "Then pay the vendor and open the goddamn ballroom. People are waiting." "People have been treating me like the help all evening. Mr. Roth, your future daughter-in-law told everyone I was dead." Lila's face drained of color. "Mom, Oh, now I'm Mom." The words came out sharper than broken crystal. 5 minutes ago, I was Eleanor from logistics. An hour ago, I was staff. This morning, I was nobody worth mentioning to your future family. Bennett looked between us. Comprehension dawning. "Wait, you're Lila's mother?" "But she said Lila. You told me your mother passed away when you were young. We visited a grave." "That was my grandmother's grave," Lila whispered. The silence that followed could have shattered glass. "Pay the vendor." Edward Roth's voice was low, dangerous. "I'll reimburse you, whatever it takes." "It's not about money, Mr. Roth." "Everything's about money." "No," I said, looking directly at my daughter. "Sometimes it's about respect. And truth." Marisol stepped forward. "Mrs. Grant has proposed modifications to the satisfaction clause. She requires 3 conditions to be met before she'll authorize payment." "What conditions?" Edward demanded. I held up my phone, reading from Avery's document. 1. Lila publicly acknowledges who I am and my role in financing this wedding. 2. The Roth family agrees in writing not to retaliate or defame me following tonight's events. 3. Any further disrespect or misrepresentation results in immediate cessation of services. "That's extortion," Edward sputtered. "That's contract law," Avery said, appearing beside me. She must have driven over, ready for exactly this moment. "Mrs. Grant is the sole contracting party. The satisfaction clause gives her complete discretion. She's actually being quite generous. She could simply walk away." The venue manager checked his watch. 8:59. 1 minute until we're required to announce the event's conclusion. The head chef appeared, wiping his hands on his apron. "Without payment confirmation, we stop plating the dinner. The hot food will be disposed of in approximately 12 minutes once it drops below safe serving temperature." The florist, who'd been removing arrangements, added, "The ballroom installations will need to be dismantled tonight if the contract is void. That's 8 hours of work. The flowers won't survive storage." The dominoes were falling fast, every vendor sensing blood in the water, protecting their interests. Lila's eyes filled with tears. "Mom, please, don't ruin this." "I'm not ruining anything. Lila, I'm just refusing to pay for my own humiliation. It's 9 o'clock, the venue manager announced. The main lights flickered once, then stayed on, but brighter, harsher. The remaining music from the cocktail pianist stopped completely. Several servers began collecting half-full champagne glasses from guests' hands. "Wait," Lila cried out. "Wait, please." Everyone froze. "Take me somewhere private," I said to the venue manager. "We need a room for negotiations." He led us to a small conference room off the main hall. Lila, Bennett, Edward and Victoria Roth, Alyssa, Marisol, and Avery. The music from the cocktail area was completely dead now. Through the window, I could see guests milling about in confusion, some already heading for the exits. "Let me be very clear," I said, standing at the head of the table like I did in financial meetings at Northwind. "I spent 30 years building a life that would give my daughter opportunities. I worked double shifts, missed holidays, wore the same winter coat for 8 years so she could have dance lessons and SAT prep. I don't need gratitude for that. It's what parents do. But I will not pay nearly $500,000 to be erased." "Mom," Lila started. "I'm not finished. You want to know what really hurts. It's not the Table 31 placement or the staff comment. It's that you were so ashamed of me. You created an entirely different mother. You gave my life to Alyssa, my struggles, my sacrifices, my story, and dressed it up in designer clothes." Victoria Roth, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. "This is all very dramatic, but there are 400 guests out there who all heard your future daughter-in-law call me the help." I interrupted. "Tell me, Mrs. Roth, would you pay $480,000 for that privilege?" She pressed her lips together and said nothing. Bennett was staring at Lila with the look of a man watching his future rewrite itself. "The story about your mother working 3 jobs to pay for your medical school applications that was actually true. But you said Alyssa. I coached her through the applications." Alyssa interjected quickly. "I was a mentor." "You were a replacement," I said flatly. "A more palatable version of me." My phone buzzed. A text from the head chef, disposing of food now. Through the window, we could see the catering staff wheeling covered carts toward the service area. 400 plates of locally sourced, organic, expertly prepared food heading for the dumpster. "This is insane," Edward exploded. "We'll sue for breach of contract." "Go ahead," Avery said calmly. "Discovery will be fascinating. We'll subpoena every email, every text where Lila misrepresented the funding source, where she told vendors the Roths were paying, where she instructed them to keep her mother in the dark about planning decisions. It'll make quite a story. Society wedding fraud, bride hides, working class, mother while spending her money. That's blackmail. That's transparency," Avery countered. "Something this family seems to struggle with." Marisol's tablet chimed. "The string quartet is packing up. They have another event at 10:30. One by one, the dominoes continued falling, the elaborate wedding infrastructure collapsing as quickly as it had been built. "What do you want?" Bennett asked me directly. "Specifically, not conditions or clauses. What do you actually want?" I looked at him, this young man who'd been sold a false version of my daughter. "I want the truth. Once. Publicly. That's all. If Lila tells everyone the truth, you'll pay. If she means it." Bennett turned to Lila. "Then do it. Ben, do it, or we're done." His voice was flat, final. "I can't marry someone I don't know." And apparently, I don't know you at all. Lila's face crumpled. That's not fair. Fair. Bennett laughed bitterly. You told me your mother was dead. You made me put flowers on some random woman's grave. You let me believe my family was helping with costs when actually... He turned to me. How much debt did you take on for this? 300,000 in retirement funds, plus a mortgage on my condo. Jesus Christ. He slumped back in his chair. My trust fund could have covered that without blinking. We could have helped. But you never asked because... He looked at Lila. Because then I'd have known your mother was alive and apparently not worthy of acknowledgement. She wouldn't have fit in. Lila burst out. Look at her. She shops at Target. She drives a 10-year-old Honda. She doesn't know anything about our world. Our world. Bennett stood up. What world is that? Lila. The one where we pretend people don't exist, where we lie about who we are. The one where appearances matter. More than truth. The question hung in the air like a blade. Through the window, I could see the florists beginning to dismantle the cocktail hour arrangements. They worked with quick efficiency, flowers disappearing into boxes, the room slowly stripped of its beauty. Several guests were taking photos of the bizarre scene, the unwedding, the event collapsing in real time. 10 minutes, the venue manager said from the doorway. Then we need to clear the building. Fire code. Mom, Lila whispered. Please. I'll do whatever you want. Just please don't let it end like this. You have two choices, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. Tell the truth now, publicly, completely, or we all walk away. The choice is yours. If I do it, if I tell everyone everything, you'll pay, you'll let the wedding continue. I looked at Avery, who nodded slightly. If you mean it, I said. If it's real, not another performance. Lila stood up shakily. I need the microphone. Madison, the MC, handed over the microphone with visible relief, probably grateful someone else was taking control of this disaster. The remaining guests, about 250, since many had already fled, turned toward the makeshift stage area where Lila stood, her wedding dress suddenly looking like costume armor that didn't quite fit. I need to tell you all something, Lila began, her voice shaking through the speakers. I've been lying, to all of you, to Bennett, to his family. The room went silent, except for the sound of phones being raised to record. The woman I called staff earlier, the one some of you asked to clean up spills and fetch drinks, that's my mother. Eleanor Grant. She's not dead. She's right there. Lila pointed at me. And she paid for everything you see here tonight. Every flower, every glass of champagne, every piece of food that's currently being thrown in the garbage. $480,000. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone dropped a glass. I told you she was dead because I was ashamed. Ashamed that she works in logistics. Ashamed that she lives in Quincy. Ashamed that she shops at discount stores and drives an old car. I wanted to be someone else. Someone who belonged in Bennett's world. So I killed her off and replaced her with... She gestured toward Alyssa, who was trying to blend into the wallpaper. With someone more acceptable. Bennett stood frozen by the door, his face unreadable. Lila continued, tears streaming now. My mother worked 2 jobs when I was growing up. She skipped meals so I could have dance lessons. She wore shoes with holes so I could have the right clothes for school. And tonight, she took out loans against her home, cashed out her retirement, destroyed her financial future so I could have this wedding. And I thanked her by pretending she didn't exist. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Oh my God." Others were openly filming. This would be all over social media within hours. The society wedding that imploded because the bride disowned her own mother. "But that's not the worst part," Lila said, her voice getting stronger. "The worst part is, I let you all believe the Roths were paying for this. I let everyone thank them for their generosity while my mother was going into debt. I committed fraud, that's what the lawyer called it. Wire fraud. Because I told vendors to send thank you notes to the wrong family. Edward Roth looked like he might have a stroke. Victoria was clutching her pearls, real ones, worth more than my annual salary. So, here's the truth," Lila said. "I'm not the orphaned heiress you thought I was. I'm the daughter of a widowed financial supervisor who loved me enough to destroy her own life to give me what I wanted. And I repaid her by—" her voice broke, "by being a monster." She looked directly at me then. "Mum, I know sorry isn't enough. I know what I did is unforgivable. But I'm asking, begging, please don't end it like this. Not because I deserve your forgiveness, but because you deserve better than having your sacrifice end in nothing." The room held its breath. 250 people waiting to see if I would bend. I stood up and walked toward my daughter. Each step echoed in the silence. "Is that all?" I asked when I reached her. "What else can I say? How about the truth about Bennett? Does he know why you really chose him?" Lila went white. Bennett stepped forward. "What is she talking about?" "Tell him," I said. "Tell him about the research you did. The spreadsheet." "What spreadsheet?" Bennett's voice was dangerous now. Lila's hands shook as she raised the microphone again. I researched families at Yale who had money, who had connections, who would be most likely to elevate someone like me. I had a spreadsheet with net worth, social connections, family business details. Bennett staggered like she'd hit him. "You were at the top," Lila whispered into the mic. "Single, wealthy, kind enough not to dig too deep into my background. The perfect mark." "The perfect mark," Bennett repeated. "I was a mark. At first, only at first, I fell in love with you." "When?" He laughed, but it was hollow. "Before or after you found out about the trust fund?" The crowd was witnessing a complete destruction now. Not just a wedding, but every relationship in the room. Alyssa tried to slip toward the exit, but I called out, "Alyssa, don't you have something to add?" She froze. "Tell them about the coaching," I said. "Tell them about the 6 months you spent teaching my daughter how to be someone else." Alyssa turned, her face a mask of forced dignity. "I was trying to help. You were trying to collect a finder's fee," I said. 10% of whatever settlement she got in an eventual divorce. I found the email. "Alyssa, the one where you called her your investment." Now the crowd turned on Alyssa, their former darling, with looks of disgust. "That's enough," Edward Roth announced. "This circus ends now. Everyone out." "You don't own this venue, Mr. Roth," the venue manager said. "Only Mrs. Grant can end this event." All eyes turned to me again. "Mom," Lila said one more time. "What do you want me to do?" I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. The child I'd raised, loved, sacrificed everything for. The woman she'd become. The lies she'd told. The future she'd destroyed. "I want you to live with the truth," I said. Publicly. Completely. I pulled out my phone and opened the banking app. Before you make any payment, Edward Roth interrupted. We need guarantees. Written. Legal. Binding. Avery stepped forward with her tablet. I anticipated that. I've drafted an agreement. Would you like to review it? Edward snatched the tablet, his eyes scanning rapidly. This is comprehensive. It protects all parties, Avery said. Mrs. Grant agrees to pay if her conditions are met. The Roths agree not to pursue any legal action or public defamation. Lila agrees to publicly acknowledge her mother's role in financing this event. Ms. Corbin agrees to return any fees or gifts received for her mentoring services. I didn't receive, Alyssa started. The diamond tennis bracelet Lila gave you last month, I said. The one that cost $12,000 from my home equity line of credit. Alyssa's hand went unconsciously to her wrist. Return it by Monday, or we add theft charges to the fraud discussion, Avery said pleasantly. The venue manager cleared his throat. We need a decision. The building must be cleared in 15 minutes if no payment is made. Edward was still reading, his face growing redder with each paragraph. This non-disparagement clause is mutual, Avery interrupted. You don't trash Eleanor. She doesn't reveal the contents of tonight's discussions. Though given how many people are recording this, that ship may have sailed. Indeed. Phones were everywhere. The collapse of the Grant Roth wedding would be Newport gossip fodder for years. If I sign this, Edward said slowly, and she signs, and payment is made, we continue with the reception. The food is gone, the catering manager reminded us. Legally disposed of. We can't serve food that's been marked for disposal. But the venue would be available. The venue manager nodded. The space is yours until 2 a.m., if payment clears. We could order pizza, someone suggested from the crowd, which earned a bitter laugh from Victoria Roth. Pizza, at a Newport wedding. Bennett finally spoke, his voice cutting through everything. There's not going to be a wedding? Everyone turned to him. Lila, I can't marry you. Not now. Maybe not ever. He pulled off his boutonniere, letting it fall to the floor. You made me complicit in humiliating the woman who sacrificed everything for you. You let me believe God. You let me put flowers on a stranger's grave while your mother was alive and paying for our future. Bennett, please. And the spreadsheet, I was data to you, a financial calculation. I love you. You love what I represent, what my family name could do for you. That's not love. Lila, that's a business transaction. He turned to me. Mrs. Grant, I'm sorry. I'm so deeply sorry for my part in this. I should have asked questions. I should have pushed when things didn't add up. The story about Alyssa raising her, it never made sense. But I didn't want to see it. You're not the one who needs to apologize, I said. Bennett reached into his pocket and pulled out a check. This is from my personal account. 200,000. It won't cover everything. But I don't want your money. Bennett. Then what do you want? I looked at the room, the vendors waiting with boxes, the guests recording everything. My daughter in her wedding dress standing next to a marriage that would never happen. The Roths looking like they'd been publicly flogged. Alyssa trying to disappear. I want to burn it down, I said simply. All of it. I held up my phone, showing the banking screen to Marisol. I'm declining to pay the final installment. According to the satisfaction clause, I'm not satisfied with the service provided. Mum! No! Lila screamed. Mrs. Grant, the venue manager said formally. I need verbal confirmation. You're refusing final payment. I'm refusing final payment. He nodded and raised his hand. Clear the venue. Now. What happened next was like watching a movie in reverse. The florists descended like locusts, stripping every arrangement, every petal, every ribbon. The lighting crew began dismantling the architectural lights that had transformed the space. The remaining bartenders poured out, opened bottles, and locked the rest in cases. You can't do this, Lila sobbed. Mum, please. I can and I am. I turned to address the crowd, my voice carrying without a microphone. You all witnessed what happened here tonight. You saw how quickly someone can erase a parent for the crime of being ordinary. You saw the lies, the manipulation, the casual cruelty of it all. I pulled out the printed contract, all 40 pages of it, and held it up. This contract represented 30 years of my work, my savings, my future. It was supposed to buy my daughter happiness. Instead, it bought me erasure. I tore it in half, then quarters, then let the pieces fall like snow. Mum! Lila lunged forward, trying to catch the falling papers. That's the only copy. No, Marisol said quietly. I have digital copies. This changes nothing legally. The refusal to pay has been recorded. Edward Roth stepped forward one last time. Name your price. What will it take to salvage this? There is no price, I said. You can't buy your way out of consequences. Everything has a price. Your son just learned that's not true. Some things, integrity, truth, love, they can't be bought. They can only be earned. And your family, Mr. Roth, hasn't earned anything tonight except public humiliation. I turned to Avery. Are we done here? Legally, yes. You've refused payment based on the satisfaction clause. The venue has the right to clear the space. No laws broken, no contracts violated. Then I'm leaving. I walked toward the exit, my conservative navy dress moving through the chaos like a ship through storm waters. Behind me, the Hawthorne Conservatory was being stripped bare, flowers vanishing into boxes, lights going dark one by one, the fantasy dissolving back into an empty room. Mrs. Grant. I turned. Bennett was jogging after me, his tuxedo jacket abandoned, bow tie hanging loose. I want you to know, he said, breathing hard. I'm calling off everything. The engagement, the relationship, all of it. She's not the person I thought she was. She's exactly who she always was, I said. You just see it now. He nodded slowly. Will you be okay financially? I mean, after all this, I'll rebuild. I always have. If you need anything, references for financial advisors, legal help, anything, please call me. He handed me his card. I mean it. What happened tonight? You deserved better. From all of us. I took the card, but said nothing. There was nothing left to say. As I reached the main doors, I heard Lila one last time, her voice cracking through the microphone she still held. You're really going to leave? You're going to abandon your daughter on her wedding day? I stopped, but didn't turn around. I'm not abandoning anyone, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I'm refusing to pay for my own erasure. There's a difference. Then I pushed through the doors into the cool Newport night. The parking lot was chaos valets running back and forth, guests calling for their cars, everyone desperate to flee the scene of social destruction. I walked past the Bentleys and Mercedes, past the Roth family's driver who stood stunned by his limousine. past Alyssa, arguing with her valet about her keys. My 10-year-old Honda Civic sat in the back row, where the staff parked. I'd been assigned this spot, naturally, far from the entrance, hidden from view of the arriving guests. Now it felt like the only honest thing in the entire parking lot. As I drove away, I could see the conservatory in my rearview mirror. The architectural lights that had made it glow like a jewel were shutting down section by section. In a few minutes, it would be just another dark building on a dark night. All that beauty and promise extinguished. My phone exploded with texts as I drove. Distant relatives who'd seen videos online. Co-workers who'd recognized me in someone's Instagram story. My sister in California. Eleanor, what the hell happened? I turned the phone off. The drive back to Quincy took 90 minutes. I passed through the invisible barriers that separate Newport from the real world, the perfect lawns giving way to strip malls, the ocean views replaced by highway medians, the fantasy dissolving into Sunday morning reality. My apartment looked exactly as I'd left it that morning. The same corporate beige walls, the same second-hand furniture, the same view of the parking lot. But now it felt different, lighter somehow. Like a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying had finally been cut loose. I poured myself a glass of wine, not the $400 bottles from the reception, just a decent Cabernet from Trader Joe's, and sat on my couch. The financial damage was real. $300,000 from my retirement. Gone. Another $180,000 in home equity loans I'd have to pay back. At 58, I'd essentially reset my financial life to zero. Worse than zero, actually. I was starting over in debt. But sitting there, still in that conservative navy dress Lila had demanded I wear, I felt something I hadn't felt in months free. Free from the fiction that money could buy acceptance. Free from the delusion that sacrifice always earned love. Free from the weight of trying to be invisible while paying for someone else's visibility. My phone, when I finally turned it back on at midnight, had 67 missed calls, 43 text messages, 12 voicemails. I deleted them all without reading or listening, all except one text from Avery. Venue confirmed they cannot pursue you for damages. Satisfaction clause was ironclad. Also, Lila's confession of fraud was recorded by multiple sources. The Roths won't risk a lawsuit. You're clear. Get some sleep. Tomorrow you start rebuilding. Tomorrow I'd start rebuilding. But tonight, for the first time in 18 months, I'd sleep without worrying about seating charts or flower arrangements, or whether the mother of the bride would be allowed to exist at her own daughter's wedding. I stood at my window, looking out at the parking lot where my Honda sat under a streetlight. It needed new tires. The check engine light had been on for a month. It wasn't much, but it was honest. It was real. It was mine. Somewhere in Newport. The Hawthorne Conservatory stood empty. All those vendors packing up their equipment. 400 guests gossiping about the wedding that imploded. The Roths dealing with their public humiliation. And my daughter learning that some things, once broken, can't be bought back. I raised my glass to my reflection in the window, a 58-year-old woman in a navy dress who'd just lost everything and somehow won. Here's to the truth, I said to no one. It costs everything, but at least it's free. The lights of Quincy spread out below, ordinary and honest, each one representing someone living their unglamorous, authentic life. Tomorrow I'd join them again, rebuilding from nothing, but building something real this time. Tonight, though, I'd finish this wine and go to bed in my own apartment, in my own life, as my own person, not the mother of the bride, Not the woman at table 31. Not the help. Just Eleanor Grant. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing to the channel and sharing your thoughts about Eleanor's decision. Was she right to burn it all down? Or should she have taken the money? I read every comment and would love to hear your perspective on this tale of family, betrayal, and the price of truth.